Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm pulling a little time warp on you here. This is the same day but different video from the radiator install on the Nova. We just got it put in, all except for the wiring the fans portion of it. And we're gonna go ahead and try and get this thing fired up and running before we mess with that. So I've got several things to do. You can see I've got belts to put back on. One major thing, I need to put new battery cables on. This was one that I just pieced together at one time to get it moved. I've got fluids to fill up, fluids to change. We're gonna, at some point, we're going to do a set of plugs and wires and distributor cap, but I know that it ran in this state, so I mean it drove itself to where it's at. So I want to get it started and going the way it is before I go messing with too much stuff, and then after we get it running, we'll get things tuned up and running a little bit better. Alright, so first order of business is to get our belts back on. So this originally was an air conditioning car, so we have a double pulley for our power steering that would have run the air conditioning, but since the AC compressor is no longer with us, I'm going to go ahead and still run two power steering belts. If I remember right, this car had a problem with squeal on the power steering belt sometime. There's probably something else that's causing that, but for now we're going to run two belts. So without the air conditioning compressor right here, this belt here to go just straight from the crank to the power steering pulley, power steering pump. I had a 36-inch belt on it and it fit, but man, it was tight. So I went ahead and got two 36.5-inch belts, and it looks like these aren't going to be loose either. So we'll see if we can get these on here. Okay, there. Well, that was more of a fight than I expected. I'll pull this up here and get it as tight as I can, but I'm a little worried that these belts don't appear to be the same length. Well, we'll see how it does after we fire it up and go from there. Next, I got the water pump and alternator belt somewhere. There it is. I think this one's just tiny. There we go. There we go. Next up will be battery cables. Make sure we got a good connection here. If I can figure out how to operate this. Oh, there it is. Put some dielectric grease on there. Hopefully that will help our case out some. for replacements, I ended up with some cables from AutoZone. I went ahead and decided to go back with the side terminal. Hopefully I don't live to regret that, but this ground cable is way longer than I need, but it was the only thing that they had that was 2 gauge. O'Reilly's didn't have anything at all that was 2 gauge. So we're gonna have to do something to make sure that stays put where it's supposed to, but we'll get that figured out. All right, we got our positive battery cable installed now. So you can see it goes down in there between the headers and over to the starter. That was a bunch of basically me laying underneath the car, and got it connected to the starter there. And then I zip tied a couple of the wires to the starter solenoid. Those headers run pretty close to the outside of that starter, so I wanted to pull those close so we didn't end up melting anything together there. The next thing that I want to do real quick while we're right here under the hood is, whenever a while back I had rebuilt this carburetor and I put all these vacuum caps and stuff on here. Well, you can see how well they've fared over the years. I think it's been about 10 years probably. So I want to get all these replaced. I had to make a few I had to rig a few of them up to get it to run right one time, but I've got more vacuum caps. It's basically more of the exact same thing, so they've got a limited life as well, but it'll be long enough that I can get this thing going again. And of course, we'll have enough oil on over. Another on the bottom side. Alright, let's see if... Okay, maybe that'll take care of any vacuum leaks. We'll look around for some more. I think there might be one in the back. No. Looks like that should do it. So, there we go. Okay, so while we're under the hood, before we start working underneath the car, more than just the starter, there's a loop of fuel line right here, if you can see it. And I want to put one of these clear fuel lines in there just so I can see what I'm getting out of the tank, make sure the fuel pump's working and all that good stuff. We put this right here. And so, in case we wind up having to change this out on the road, I got these little guys with the handles on them. That'll make it go a little easier. Make sure we get both sides on. Oh yeah. Yeah, that ought to work. Okay, I'm getting antsy. So we've got fuel filter in place, belts on, the new radiators in place, don't have the fans wired up. We got new battery cables. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just check fluids, check the oil, check the transmission fluid, throw a battery in it, maybe do something, little something with fuel, and we're gonna see if this thing will fire up. I still got a bunch of maintenance type stuff I want to do, change transmission fluid and all that stuff, but I'd really like to hear this thing run and get it going before I get started on all that. So I'm going to do that. So the thing with the fuel on this thing, I put this fuel in it probably close to 10 years ago now. I did put Stay-Bill in it, so I had put some fuel in it. I drove it to a storage unit, stored it there for 5 years, went and got it, and it virtually fired right up on that old fuel that was 5 years old at the time. Didn't really have any trouble. So I'm hoping maybe the Stay-Bill is holding out for me a little bit better. We'll see. I'm gonna go get some fresh gas and we'll see what we can do. If the fuel is low in the tank, I may go ahead and just add some fuel to it and see if maybe we can kind of blend it off a little bit that way. But we'll go check that out and see. So it appears to not have any gas in it whatsoever, and I haven't decided exactly if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're going to put about 10 gallons of new fuel in it in case maybe that'll help if there's anything bad inside. But now that I've dumped fuel all over the floor, it'll be hard to know whether or not that tank has got a hole in it. Well, I don't see any major leaks coming out the bottom, so let's go get a battery in this thing and see what'll happen. Okay, got the battery and fire extinguisher on standby. Okay, moment of truth. Got the fire extinguisher handy. Well, there's a buzzer. Okay. Go shut the door to turn that buzzer off. Alright. So we'll see what we can do. This vent tube here goes straight into the float bowls, so let's see if we can maybe fill them up a little bit without pouring gas everywhere. No, we're just going to pour gas everywhere. This is working terribly. Well, we'll see what that does. Alright, fire extinguisher at the ready. Let's see what we've got. Are you serious? This thing hasn't run in 10 years. Or 5 years. We got fuel coming up. It's just sitting here idling. I literally just bumped the key once. Holy cow. Holy crap, I can't believe I can't believe this. Oh, literally, it's sat here for 5 years and it hasn't done anything. This thing hasn't run, and you saw exactly how fast it started. I'm glad I got that on tape. Alright, I'm going to shut it down now. I don't have any coolant in it. Well, I'm still in awe over that. I can't believe how easy that thing started up. But that means let's get the oil changed, and I'm going to put a new transmission filter in it, new gasket, and then I don't know if it's leaking or not, but I've got a rear seal for the transmission too, just in case. So let's get started on that now. So, a little surprise down here, wanting to change this filter and gasket and everything. And I don't know if I've just never done one in one of these cars or in a car. I've done several trucks, but I get to looking, following all the bolts around, and I come across this. I didn't realize this was a thing. So that transmission cross member has those bolts for the back of the pan completely hidden. So kind of made me want to just skip this portion, but as you can see, we're leaking pretty bad, and if I'm giving up on it, how many people have given up on it in the past? So it probably really needs to be done. So what I'm going to try to do is I took these two cross member bolts out, and I'm going to see if I can get a jack underneath the tail shaft of the transmission and see if I can get that up high enough to get a hold of those bolts and get them taken out. Okay, change of plans. So you indeed cannot get the transmission high enough to get anything to those bolts, so I guess it needs to be done. We're going to go ahead with taking this cross member off. Okay, that gets us open enough. Let's see if I can get, let's see, what size are we? Alright, I'm going to see if I actually, I'm going to move you guys a little farther away. Alright, I'm going to see if I can get the front of this pan to come down first. Well, that was uneventful. We may be pretty low on fluid. It leaked quite a bit out. See if I can do this. I'll just let the whole pan down at one shot. Come on. There, that wasn't too bad. Well, this oil really doesn't look too bad. Oh. It's in the pan anyway. It doesn't smell bad, smell burnt or anything. There is some material in the bottom, but who knows how long it's been since this has been changed, so I think that's mostly clutch material stuff. So it's a good thing it's being changed, but the fluid itself I don't think is in too bad a shape. Alright, got the pan out here in the daylight, and there's definitely more here than I wish there was. I think that's mostly clutch stuff. I don't see a lot of anything that's shiny. If it is, it's real fine. So I don't know, we'll see. I'm not too worried about it. Overall, the fluid looked pretty good. So, and like I said, who knows how long it's been since this has been changed, given you had to take that cross member off. So we'll get this thing cleaned up and we'll stick it back in there. Okay, got the pan cleaned up pretty good, and I wanted to show you guys something. So I always try to make sure anytime I have a steel stamped pan or something like this, something that can bend, I always try to straighten out where these bolt holes are. So almost always whenever there's a bolt that goes through here and you tighten it down against the gasket, it bows that out. So this here is a pretty good example. Let's see if I can prop this up on my belly here. So, and you can't see very good there, but see that bolt hole being bowed up there? It's got a pretty good bow to it, whereas like these over here aren't too bad. So I'll see if I can show it on camera, but basically what I do is I find a board or something like that that's flat, and stick it underneath. And this one's not going to work because it's not going to fit down in there. So, say we were working on this side, I'd take and I'd stick that board underneath there like that, so I got something to go against, and then I take just some kind of smooth faced hammer and flatten those out, and that'll go a long ways towards helping that gasket seal up better, because otherwise what you'll do is you'll bottom these out first and it won't get an even crush on the gasket all the way around, and you'll wind up with a leak. So just a good tip, flatten out all your bolt holes best you can, and just best you can by eye is plenty good. Sight down it or feel it even, and if it feels like it's raised up, knock it back a little bit until it feels good. Alright, we got the transmission pan all cleaned up. Went ahead and shot some paint on it, so this is probably too early to be doing. The paint's soft still, but it'll be alright. I got the transmission, oh no, gosh dang it, I had the transmission pan gasket on and stuck with some RTV in a few places just to get it to stay, and you see how well that worked. It looks like the gasket is tight enough on the bolts to hold the bolts in place. So if you stick a few bolts in, not only will it hold them, but it will keep the gasket in place. So let's try it that way instead of our RTV thing. A lot of times the new gasket will come with a torque spec. This one did not, but conventional wisdom on the internet, the overwhelming majority says somewhere around 13 foot-pounds, which seems like a lot right now. Torquing these helps get nice even pressure on the gasket, the entire pan, as well as not squeezing the gasket out too far. got the cross member all bolted back up. That probably is one of the worst transmission filters I've ever done with having to do that. So we're going to dump some transmission fluid in it, get it fired up here for just a minute, and then see if we can check it, top it off where it needs to be. So I got distracted a little bit. It got dark on me. Another thing is I got the transmission fluid put in, but whenever I start it up, I want to be able to put water in it and run it for a little while longer. And the main thing that's holding that up is I've got this little plug in right now, but what I really want to be in there before I add water in is a sensor for one of the mechanical gauges. So I've got that all lined out here. And so the trick with these always is getting a hole through the firewall big enough to get this guy stuck through there. And there's actually a fitting that I need to slide down here that goes on the back of that. So it takes a pretty good sized hole. And then whenever you get that on, also you need to have this tube. Oh, I got my magnet stuck. You need to have this tube run through your mount and for the backer, for the nut that goes on the back of the gauge to hold it on. So all of that's got to be set up before you can hook the fitting into the intake. So that's what I've been working on. I didn't show much of it. It was kind of just me rolling around here on the seat. So I ended up mounting, I got the triple gauge set. And I'm gonna put, what I ended up doing is there are 2 screws that mount this dash panel to a brace under the bottom here. And basically I just used self-tappers, took the small screws out and ended up running a little bit bigger screw through the same hole to get this mounted. So that'll be good. I did have to drill another hole a little off center in this bracket in order to stick the hole through. So we got that set up, but now I need to get that gauge fished through here and get the tube fished out through the firewall. So we're going to try and do that. On these gauges, you want to be careful. I think I'll put it in the left. So you've got to feed all this stuff through this hole, get this nut put on the correct way, and then the main thing is you have to be careful with this tube. It's I think they call it a boron tube or something. Anyway, it essentially houses an inert gas, and if you bend this around and crank it around too much, you could break it and then your gauge quits and there's no way to fix that. So I hope I got this hole big enough. So now it's a matter of pulling slack through and then from the other side and then lining things up on this side so we don't kink anything. All right, now that we've got our tube run out here, we'll start working from the engine side back. And I was 100% correct about regretting my decision to put this in already. So I just had this plug kind of threaded it hand tight. So probe then needs to go in here, and the kit comes with some adapters. So the kit comes with some adapters, and this is a 1/2-inch pipe thread adapter. I hope I'm not going to run into an issue with that hose being in the way. Okay, and the probe needs to go in, and unfortunately I'm going to have to bend a pretty sharp angle on that tube. I'm not too wild about it. So also, before I tighten this down, I'm giving it a little bit of a twist that way so that as I tighten it, it can naturally come around. Okay. Hopefully that'll get it. Now, to get that hose in there, unfortunately, put a pretty good bend on here. And then I'm actually going to run it down. I found some deals. I can use the valve cover bolts to hold that there. So let's see if we can get this hose on here. So it looks like it's going to work. It's pretty tight, but it looks like it'll work. So now that we've got all the tube in the engine compartment that we need to bundle up all this extra that we've got here. So I'm basically going to very carefully just kind of bunch it up basically without, and try not to kink it at all. It may not actually be as delicate as I make it out to be, but this is a fair amount of work to go through just to get to have one not work for you. So now with a little luck I can still get my nut over all that mess. And there's that. Well, we can finally put some coolant in this thing. See if I've got any leaks. Well, I've got so many videos going, I don't know where we ended up exactly, but this is the current status of events. So, we've got new shoes. I ordered some 225/70 15s from a company called Priority Tire. Heard about it on, where did I hear about it? Pole Barn Garage. So, we got those on, we're ready to go. Today is my day off. It's a Friday, it's the day right before the poker run. So I'm trying to get everything around, get this thing licensed. So I'm working through some lighting. Got most everything working. My marker lights are a little temperamental. The reverse lights are a little temperamental, but we're gonna see if we can get those taken care of. The marker lights I'm not as worried about, but the main thing is I needed to check out this headlight. So I don't know if you noticed in the videos before, but it was just kind of laying in there, and somebody had actually put this old Pepsi can to help prop it up. I'm not sure why. It's not that big a deal. Basically, the only thing it's missing is headlight adjusters. But so we're gonna see if we can get that fixed up, get the headlight mounted in there correctly, and then hopefully we'll be driving before very long. You saw in the other video, I got the wiring completed for the electric fans. We got gauges put in. Here, let me get some light on. You can see that I still don't have the new cap and rotor and wires and all that stuff on. Basically, it's running right now, and I need to make sure I get this thing in and get it safety inspected and stuff. So I'll do that as I have time, but I think that's about everything that's been done since. I did go through, I checked the wheel bearings, I looked at all the brakes. Looks like somebody did some brake work on this thing not too long ago. So I've got really good pads, good shoes, the hardware is not too old. I mean, I'm sure it's obviously 10 plus years old, but it's just been sitting here not doing anything. The brake hoses look pretty decent. They've definitely been replaced, and I've even found some brake lines that have been replaced. So honestly, I lucked out on that quite a bit. I guess there's always the possibility that there's somewhere in there that's rusted that I couldn't see, but overall, taking a look at everything, I feel pretty good about it. So let's get started on this headlight and see where we can get to. So it's far from ideal, but we've got headlight adjusters again. No spring, but I came up with a solution. See that wire coming through and going around to the, oh, what's that, the condenser line here? Well, that's going to be our spring. I don't like doing stuff that way, but this is what we got time for, and I'm not too worried about it holding in there. So we'll get this trim all put together, probably try this headlight out and make sure it works, and we're getting pretty close to go. All right, I think we're about ready to go. So I've got the headlight in, just got fluids and everything checked, so I think we're about ready to fire this thing up. I got to check the transmission fluid, and we're going to sit here and make sure the fans kick on. But we're just about ready to pull this thing out for the first time in, well, the first time under its own power in around 10 years, something like that. So we'll take it uptown and go see if we can get it washed up. All right, here goes. Brakes are a little spongy, but they're coming around. I don't know if you can see my head rubbing on this. So our lovely little, I don't know, rodent friends, whatever you want to call them, have decided to build a nest in the headliner. So that's probably going to have to come out, but let's see if we can make it to the car wash with this thing. The rat turds and dust are going to be flying. Brakes are pretty good. I'm kind of slouching down so I don't have to rub on this mouse nest here. The speedometer cable's not happy in there. We're gonna take some, I'm gonna go down this dead end road first, see how we do. Oh yeah, shifting good. Oh, she runs a little bit. My wiper's still upside down there. I need to find a refill. Oh, bumps. Could probably use some shocks, but we're not going to get that treatment on this occasion. All right, let's see if we can warm up the tires, you know, for tuning purposes. Well, that started well. Oh yeah. All right, well, after the car wash, I took it out for a drive. We put probably 50, 60 miles maybe on the car, and for the most part, everything went pretty well. A lot of stuff started going better as I drove it. The self-canceling turn signal started working. The turn signal started blinking faster. It started running a little better and what have you, but I did find one issue that we want to get taken care of. So you see it jacked up here. The pinion seal is leaking, and it's not terrible. I mean, it's pretty bad. We can make it through tomorrow, I guess, is what I'm getting at. That's going to be a 100-mile trip, but I don't know how much more time I'm going to get to devote to this, and I don't want it to be sitting here and I have to fill the rear end every time we want to drive it. So I'm gonna see if we can get this knocked out. Between AutoZone and O'Reilly's, hopefully I've got a seal that fits. I asked for a pinion seal for this Nova, a car, two-wheel drive car, and AutoZone asked me if I want the front pinion seal or the rear pinion seal, so I guess we'll go whatever. So I bought one of theirs, and then I went over to O'Reilly's, told him what I wanted, and apparently there were no options. He just went and got a seal. So hopefully one of the two is right. My money's on O'Reilly's, but we'll see how this goes. So I'm gonna get under there, get the drive shaft loose, and then we'll take a look at what we got. All right, well, we got her going. It got a little hectic there. I've got a bunch of video pieces there that hopefully I can string into something good for you guys. It got a little hectic. I ended up changing the pinion seal last night around 9:30 or so. So at that point, I was just trying to get things done. I didn't video too much, but we got everything going. We're hopefully this makes for a good summer of being able to drive this car around and just use it some. There's a million things that still need to be fixed on it, but the main thing is that it's back on the road. We're licensed, insured, ready to rock. So thanks for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for some more videos on this car. Thanks.